What's going on, everybody? My name is Eric. Welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome to another YouTube video. Today I want to go over the question of whether or not having a stiffer spring and stiffer tendon actually helps us in sporting performance with generating force and more force quickly. Short answer is yes, but let me explain why anatomically and physiologically. So, first thing that we want to go over is Hooke's law. Hooke's law is described as F is equal to negative kx. But what exactly is Hooke's law and why do we need to know about it? Basically, it's a way of describing that the material of a spring and how much of dependence that it's going to have when we want to compress and expand something and generate force. So basically what this means is that if we have a very stiff spring, it's going to take much more newtons of force to compress the spring. Therefore, after we compress it and just let it go, it's actually going to generate a much higher rate of force, a much higher rate of force development, and stronger, essentially it's just going to produce more force because it has a much stiffer material that it's composed of. Now, how does this relate to muscle anatomically and physiologically? So this might be a little bit hard to see, but we have our tendon and aponneuroses. Our aponneuroses are like deep fascia to our tendons. So if we want to think about like muscle tissue, we have our endomysium, our perimysium, and then our epimysium. Our epimysium is like the fascia covering the entire muscle tissue. Our perimysium is the fascia that covers the muscle fascicle. And then our endomysium is the fascia that covers each individual muscle fiber, which then is composed of muscle fibrils, muscle cells, sarcolemma, etc. But it's a way of describing the tendons and aponneuroses, which, like I just said, is an elastic tissue of deep fascia in the tendons. Beyond that, so we have our series elastic component, and like we said, Hooke's law, if it is stretched or compressed, it's going to generate some sort of form of force through elastic or through potential and elastic energy. And then we have our parallel elastic component. This is actually parallel, right, to our contractile unit, or over here as we can see it too. We have our series elastic component, parallel elastic component, and then our contractile unit. So our parallel elastic component is a way of describing the different parts within a sarcolemma or within a muscle cell. It is the parts that compose of it. So we have our sarcoplasmic reticulum, our perimysium, our epimysium, and then different parts within the muscle cell itself to help us with contraction. So if we go back to anatomy and we look into our sarcoplasmic reticulum, we have action potentials that we have our central nervous system that picks up a signal and it realizes that we have to contract our muscle. So it's going to send an action potential down through the central nervous system into the neuromuscular junction, release acetylcholine, allow the action potential to travel down the T tubules into the sarcoplasmic reticulum. That reticulum is actually going to release calcium ions. It's then going to allow actin and myosin to bind to each other and create that cross-bridge cycle that allows muscle contraction to occur. So all those little parts, the sarcoplasmic reticulum, the T tubules, and all those different parts making up within a sarcolemma, and that's going to be generated, or it's going to be composed through our parallel elastic component. Now, our contractile unit is basically just exactly what it describes. It's the way it showcases to us, or pretty much shows us what is used to contract a muscle. So we have, like I said, our actin and our myosin. We have our Z discs, which are basically, they form the I and A bands. Our I bands are our thin actin filaments, and then our A bands are thick myosin filaments. Our A bands don't actually shorten during a muscle contraction, even though they have actin, but because they have myosin does not actually shorten. Actin, it might be hard to see, but we have our H zone here, and then we have our I bands, which are actin, our A bands, which are thick myosin filaments. We have our Z discs. What happens during a muscle contraction is during each contraction where the myosin head, its globular head, attaches to actin, it pulls the Z discs closer together, therefore shortening the H zone. Pulling the I band shortens up the I band, but the A band stays the same due to the myosin. However, so when we go through all of this, we come to realize that during a muscle contraction, if we can have stronger tendons, stiffer tendons, this is going to allow us to generate more force and more force quickly. So if we look back to our series elastic component over here, that's attached to where our parallel elastic component is and the contractile unit. If we look at this, and we can realize that if this spring-like mechanism has stiffer material to it, if we compress that, it's going to be able to contract and it's going to be able to express more force and more force quickly, therefore allowing us to, let's say, be stronger in the gym, be faster during sports. So if someone kicks a soccer ball and they want to outrun an opponent, or even on the track, if we want to get faster times in a 100-meter dash, having stronger and stiffer tendons is going to allow us to apply more force into the ground, have a higher rate of force development, and allow us to go by quicker. So just to recap everything, we have Hooke's law, which basically describes the compression of a spring, and the more stiff the spring is, the greater rate of force and the greater rate of force development that spring can express. That's a good way to, is a general way of describing Hooke's law. And then we go into our series elastic component made up of tendons and aponneuroses. Aponneuroses are like a deep fascia, like our epimysium, just a protective layer covering the tissue. Then we have our tendons, which connect our muscle to our bone. Our parallel elastic component, which is made up of all the parts within a sarcolemma. So we have sarcoplasmic reticulum, our T-tubules, and everything that helps us with contraction of a muscle. And then we have our contractile component, which is made up of our I bands, which is our actin filaments, our A bands, which are our myosin filaments, the H zone and the A band. The A band actually contains both actin and myosin filaments, but the H zone, as we contract a muscle, it actually shortens. And this is kind of like our central region during our actin and myosin filaments. It just kind of shows us that when we contract a muscle, it's going to shorten, and it just basically shows us what happens during concentric and eccentric muscle contraction. And that's basically it. So I hope you guys liked and enjoyed this video as much as I did making it. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.